Hello and welcome, and thanks again for joining us today. I'm Carlen Wilutis, the VP of Customer Success here at Sentispec, and I'll be hosting and moderating today's session. We'll be sort of peering into our crystal ball today to forecast those trends in logistics tech for 2024 here with Andreas and Magnus, and of course, how to keep that competitive edge within logistics, even amid potential recession or economic downturn. Andreas here is the founder and CEO of Sentispec, and he's joined by Magnus, who's one of Sentispec's senior salespeople. Really excited to get into the material with them today. But for the audience, as always, please ask any questions that you have. You can use the chat function, the Q&A function. Whenever you've got those questions, please put those there. I'll be answering some in real time, of course, during the presentation, as will Andreas and Magnus. Really excited to dive into these deeper trends and what we're predicting to come out of 2024 here. So with that, I'll let Andreas and Magnus take it away. One last thing, you may have noticed that Morten is not here. He's unable to join us today, so we do have Andreas filling in. So if you saw the ad and clicked that link for Morten's face, we're sorry to disappoint. Hopefully Andreas can fill in the blanks there and be a solid replacement. So that's that. But here, just to kick into the agenda real quick, yes, we'll be focusing on a new business climate when there's such downward pressure when it comes to pricing, and when we do expect that to continue into next year. Of course, we want to make sure that you're gaining some insights in how computer vision can make your logistics operations more resilient. And finally, we'll be looking into how both computer vision and AI can help you secure really short-term gains and not just those long-term investment and returns when it comes to competition within the 3PL space, especially. So I'll kick it over to Magnus.
Yeah, thank you, Carlen. So I'll start talking a little bit about the general business climate and what we're seeing currently and how we see that evolving into 2024. So what we're seeing currently is a downward pressure on pricing, and downward pressure on pricing to the extent that the spot market was lower, is currently lower than the contract market. This is the first time in 6 years that has happened. So that is a massive indicator of a decrease in demand and an increase in capacity. So this is kind of a new thing in the market, but we see it being a challenge at least for the first half of next year. So this is there's many dynamics connected to this evolvement in pricing, and it's primarily due to the decrease in the consumer spending and all effects that comes with that. So we see a tough 2024 when it comes to pricing. But it's also an opportunity to consolidate and to focus on value-adding activities. So what is then happening in the cost structure? What we see right now is that there's a surge in fuel pricing. This has again is a effect of numerous different activities. One of them is OPEC, who is cutting the oil production. Another is a surge in the global demand for oil. All of this translates into an increase in fuel pricing, which will translate into a higher cost base for 3PLs across Europe and across the world. Another thing that we're seeing currently is that there's a significant rise in wages, and especially when it comes to drivers. There's a big shortage of drivers across Europe, which means that currently a third of all drivers in Europe are more than 55-year-olds and is expected to retire within the next 5 to 10 years, and only 6% of the driver force is beneath 25. So this will only be an increasingly strong tendency and will only put more strain on the labor cost. So what we're seeing for 2024 is a downward pressure on pricing due to the general economic environment and a surge in freight rates over the Corona period, which is now over. And we see a rise in the primary cost drivers. So it will be a challenge in 2024, and the only way to deal with that is through increased utilization and increased automation in order to be competitive in the market. And with that, I'll give it to you, Andreas, who will talk a little bit about the tech and the maturity of different tech within the supply chain industry currently.
Sure. So if you are aware of the, or if you're not aware of the DHL Trend Radar, which has just come out again this year, I'd suggest you have a look at it. There's a link there. It's a ragingly good read and a good way to look at what technologies are relevant in a supply chain context, what is relevant now, what's going to be relevant in the future, and how important is it. Now, I don't mean to go through the entire radar, but DHL actually have a detailed explanation of what each of these bullet points mean. I will pull out three that I find particularly interesting. One is the digital twin, which you will see in the right side of the diagram about halfway up. So digital twin is the idea that you have a technology system that mirrors your warehouse and your transport system. And it's a concept that's been used. Yeah, so someone's asking if you can paste the link in. For sure, we can do that. It's a concept that's been used, digital twin, in manufacturing for quite a few years, where you use it to survey your plants and your equipment with a view to increasing the operational efficiency by doing things like preventive maintenance. And that idea easily translates to logistics, where you have a number of things that need to be maintained and so on. The thing is that most of what you need is already in your warehouse management and transport management systems. You don't necessarily need to invent new systems, but you do need a way of more frequently inputting information into them. And maybe there's something about real-time tracking of locations of trucks and forklifts and so on. So that's digital twin. That is coming. I think there's a sensible way to go about it, which is to use your existing master data management systems, like the TMSs and so on. And there's a not so sensible way, which is to try and build an entirely new system. That will be expensive, it takes a long time, and it ignores all of the value and knowledge you've built up in your existing estate. The other thing that is worth mentioning, and one where DHL has a quite strong view, is drones, very often in the context of using drones for stock taking. So you'll see that again on the right side, in the top right corner of the diagram. Now, drones for stock taking has a very, very large number of problems. First of all, you need to figure out this drone. Is it going to be autonomous, i.e. navigate by itself? Or are you going to have something else to help it navigate? If you make it autonomous, it gets expensive. You need a lot of computing power. It gets bigger, more costly, and all these things. There are examples of that, something like Dextery, which ended up being so big that it had to have wheels and couldn't fly, compared to something like Verity, which is a flying drone. Verity's drones, in comparison to Dextery's autonomous. They do their self-navigating and are incredibly expensive as a result. You look at Verity's drones, they are not autonomous. They navigate by using beacons, either radio navigation or mirror-based navigation with lasers indoor, which has a massive cost to install and operate. And at the end of the day, that means that drone-operated facilities become really expensive. There is a role for drones, and that's typically in the sense of auto store, where you're in the auto picking space. That works really well. But when you look at pallet-sized warehouses, it's somewhat harder, and that's the conclusion that DHL has come to as well. The third thing, naturally, that I want to talk about is computer vision. So you will see that DHL have marked computer vision out as being industry shaping in the coming years. And we completely agree with that, because the core of our technology is computer vision. So you will find that also on the blue side in the middle of the diagram, as in value realization is happening now. If you take one of our products, a handler product, every time you pick up a pallet, we read the ID on the pallet, we figure out where it's supposed to go, and we tell you if you're about to put it in the wrong place. That saves you a bunch of labor costs, saves you a bunch of scanning time, and reduces the amount of errors you make, thereby again reducing labor costs and increasing customer quality, which means it's a differentiating factor at the end of the day. That's what we can do today. That system is live, it's operational, customers love it. The next step, and the last thing I want to draw your attention to, is extended reality. Blue dot at the bottom, the left side. Now, if you imagine a driver having a set of augmented reality goggles, our system will pick up a pallet and figure out where it needs to go. Then you could augment the driver's view with some arrows as to where he's supposed to go, and with a green circle or square around the gate he's supposed to drive that pallet through. Then you start having a real-time visual aid for the drivers to again increase the efficiency and productivity of what they do. So that's very much what we see sort of in our area of expertise today and in the future. Make the flow of goods quicker, more seamless, more fluid, and a lot cheaper. Move to the next one.
Yeah.
So we have a number of products. We have our inventory product for stock taking, the handler product for tracking pallets as you move them around the forklifts. We have Inspector for route optimization by automating the fill rate measuring process. And then we have Pinpoint, which is our cloud platform for all the statistical data. It's, I don't mean to go through the entire roadmap, but a few things that are worth noting is on the handler, which is a forklift mounted system, we will add dimension estimation. So that means we will estimate the volume of every single piece of goods that you are moving in and out of your trailers and your containers. Now that gives you a significant, as we see it, uplift on your ability to accurately invoice your customers. Right? And vice versa, if you are a customer, then it gives you assurance that you're being invoiced the right amount. So that's a bit of a killer feature as we see it. Just doing that whole thing automatically, because doing it manually is costly. Guys going around with measuring tape and so on. It's not really feasible, or certainly very expensive when you do it. The other thing is Inspector, where we can measure the fill rate either using mobile phones or using security cameras. We are in the process of a 24-country rollout with that. And so that's really cool, right? Optimizing a network of maybe 5,000 daily vehicles. What if you could reduce that by 100? Well, that's tens of millions of euros of value right there, pure profit. And then, of course, we've launched Pinpoint, which then gives you sort of the top level management view of all the things that are going on that currently you can't get any transparency into. And I think transparency is, well, I'll leave it and then hand it back over to Magnus.
Thank you, Andreas. So I will talk a little bit about what we see in the market in terms of logistics trends in 2024 and how we see our clients navigating in that. So what we see is that the big winners of 2024 are going to be the first movers of technology. So who is able to optimize and utilize their operations best. This can be fluffy to navigate in, but the overall way that we see it is that you should navigate from a value-driven perspective. So connect each new IT project or new technology into a concrete value-driven purpose. So start by creating a business case, then test the business case in a pilot and only then scale, so that you don't overcommit on technologies that won't deliver short-term gains for you as a company. So we see that there are 4 primary places where this derived value can come from. It can come from cost savings. That can either be through automation or increased utilization. It can come through improved customer satisfaction. So are you able to increase the transparency towards the customer based on automated processes and thereby increase the perceived value of your product? Is there a general innovation strategy in the company? We see some of our clients who wants to operate a warehouse in 2025 on a Sunday without a single person being involved. So is this technology a prerequisite for obtaining that goal? And then obviously enhanced efficiency. So how efficient are we in our operation, and how much is the cost per pallet for handling it, for example? So this trends of 2024 will be surrounded by, and this will be how our clients is navigating, at least. So how does Sentispec fit in all of this? We fit in through automation and increased utilization. We have two devices. We have inventory and handler who will automate processes. So this will be automation of stock taking with the inventory, where you would go from having manual stock taking to having a high-speed camera doing the actual stock taking for you, and thereby increasing the efficiency up to 30-fold. Then we will have handler who will track the movement of goods from scan in to scan out in the warehouse and deliver that data to a centralized system that can then push the data to either customers or to decision makers within the company who look at operations and optimization. And then we have Inspector, which is an app-based solution that calculates fill rates and thereby creates an environment where route planners can make more informed decisions about the utilization of the fleet. So this will increase the utilization. So we deliver products across the supply chain, but primarily within utilization, increased utilization and automation. So this is how we fit in all of this. And if you are interested in hearing more about how we can deliver value to your operations, you're more than welcome to book a meeting with me. And then we can look at your concrete operations and how computer vision and AI might make you the winner of 2024, so to say. So with that, we will go to Q&A.
Great, thank you, Magnus. I've got one here. Just thinking about 2024, what sort of trends are you envisioning even beyond that? Like, let's say the next 5 years within tech, within logistics, whether it's AI, computer vision, or anything else?
So I can try and start on that one. It's very clear that there are very many manual operations. And when you look at what we are trying to do and what we very much see as the trend is rethink which parts of this operation is suitable for human operation and which parts are not. So if you look at what humans are really bad at, high volume, high precision, repetitive tasks, like reading barcodes, we're not very good at that, okay? A computer is really good at that. If you look at what humans are good at, it's making almost intuition-based, complex decisions in dynamic environments. Computers are really bad at that, which is also why self-driving cars have trouble, let's put it that way. Humans are really good at that, right? To a limit, there's parts of that that can be automated. There are things that are predictable, and those you want to take away from the human and give to the machine. You always want the human to be in control, and that's very much what we do. So if you take our handler system as an example, what we do is we eliminate the manual hand scanning because humans are just not great at it, and it's boring and, you know, makes mistakes. Things like measuring the volume of what's on the pallet. Well, it takes a lot of time and it's not very accurate and it's inconsistent. Or from our Inspector product, measuring the fill rate of the content of a container. Humans will never be able to do that consistently across, say, 10 or 20 sites, or even one site. So let the computer do that. And that's what we do. We fundamentally rethink who should be doing what, who's good at what, and start moving those things around. At the moment, the vast majority of work is still manual. And we want to change that. And that's what we're seeing generally across the industry. I'd say those who are successful are the ones who start with a business case. What is the business case for doing this? You, again, take the volume estimation. The business case writes itself. It is blatantly obvious that this is a good idea. Whereas when you look at things that I have seen, like congestion monitoring of a warehouse floor by looking at how the forklifts and the people move, very hard to do a business case for. If you start with a business case, it typically ends well. I don't know, Magnus, if you have something to add to that.
Yeah, I would just say that, like in the short to medium term, I see it very much being ROI based, where we a couple of years ago had a really high margin environment within the logistics industry because of Corona. We are now moving towards a more thin margin environment, and therefore I think the investments within technology will be more short term in terms of ROI. Another thing I think we need to take into account is the amount of control that people have in the warehouse for stuff like labeling and which quality measures that are getting imposed by the client. So for Amazon and Alibaba, they will be able to make fully automated warehouses and show them as you know, fantastic flagship warehouses. But in reality, we see a future where 98% of the warehouses in the world won't be able to do that degree of automation because they lack control of the processes, because that they get so much goods from different stakeholders. This in turns translate into automate as much as possible kind of future. So we see a future where you will be able to automate 90 to 95% of the processes in a warehouse, but where there will be these fringe cases where if it's fully automated, all of the operations will just stop. So a person will have to be there to kind of move the processes along when these externalities enter the warehouse. So yeah, the fully automated warehouses will be there in 5 years, but it will be more for flagship kind of thing, and the vast majority of the warehouses will have a semi-automation future, but with a high degree of automation. Is my view on the next 5 years within the warehouse industry.
Very cool. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks, guys, for both answers. We've got a question, and I might tag on my own question to this, if that's okay. But one that came through the chat, can you provide more information on the demographics of locations with promising potential for implementing computer vision and what Sentispec's plan is for that? I would like to break this into 2 parts. Is there anything specific that we see for a warehouse transport specifically that makes them a really great case for computer vision? And also, are we seeing any markets where this is being leveraged more heavily than others already?
Okay, so yes and no. Let me start by that. We have customers. So the obvious answer would be where there is a high labor cost, there is a need for automation, and therefore computer vision has a role. That would be sort of the immediate answer. Unfortunately, that's not true. We find that so we have customers across all of Europe, high cost Europe, low cost Europe. We have customers in Dubai. We have customers in Malaysia. We've just got our first customer in the US. We have interest from South America. So it looks like labor cost is not the denominator here. It looks like I'd say there's some variation in the use cases and the value from the use cases. Whereas in some low-cost countries, it might be the business case might be more driven by quality increase, and in Northern Europe, it might be more of a labor cost business case. But fundamentally, we're talking about the same working processes being optimized across the board. Did that kind of get around the question?
I think so.
Yeah, but it's huge, right? The optimization potential is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. You know, we're working in an industry where if you find 0.25% or 0.5%, you're happy. We have customers where we are taking 6, 8, even 10% of their cost base out of their operation in a matter of 3 months. Okay, I'll just leave that there for a second. We have customers who operate route networks where we have taken 10% of the route capacity out of the network, reducing the number of trucks, and they've been able to deliver the same amount of goods. Every truck being some 120,000 euros a year, right? It's quite staggering what's available in terms of optimization.
I think another angle on that is also that it can be tender driven sometimes, that a particular customer for one of our clients need a certain service that can only be provided through increased automation or increased consistency in the data flow, and then a certain geographical location will pop up. But we are mostly in Europe as of right now, but yes, as Andreas is saying, we are rapidly expanding to both Asia and the US as the primary geographical areas. So these would be the 3 primary ones, if you had to say some, I would say.
Makes sense. When we think about future trends, I think we can't get away from sustainability and environmental impact. So one question that we did receive is, how can AI be used to improve sustainability and reduce environmental impact of logistics and warehouse ops?
So there's two answers to that, a simple one and a complicated one. The simple one is we have our inspector product that can measure the fill rate of any container and any trailer in the world. When we do that, we can optimize the networks by 5 to 10% of capacity. That takes trailers and trucks off the road. That reduces the CO2 emissions. That's a pretty straightforward answer. We know it works. We know the volume of it. And as I mentioned, we're deploying it now on a 24-country network. That will have a massive impact just in reducing CO2 emissions. The slightly more complicated answer is there was a UN report came out, I think last year, that basically stated that transparency in supply chains is the key to improving sustainability, both from an environmental point of view and a social and governance point of view. And what we provide there is an increased transparency. Whenever you load a pallet into a vehicle, we have automatically registered that, and we have pictures of it. We know exactly where your goods are all the way along the supply chain. And that transparency gives you something that you haven't had before. And we see that some of, when we released Pinpoint about a month ago, some very, very large global top 10 3PLs had a look at that and said, wow, that's massive. I've never had this transparency before. Right? And that just gives you all of those effects quite rapidly, actually.
And an extension of that is also the CO2 calculations. So as the transparency across the supply chain increases, you will have an easier time to track the actual footprint of the individual product and thereby tax it the right way. So what we see right now is a lot of carbon taxes being implemented across Europe, the latest ones being Austria and Germany in 21 and 22. So AI will help on the transparency and traceability of the individual product and the calculation of the actual CO2 footprint, which then in turn will make companies make more sustainable decisions.
Great. What challenges do you anticipate in widespread adoption of AI within logistics and warehousing, and how do you think they could be addressed?
Thanks for that. Where do I begin with that? I'd say the biggest challenge is a lack of understanding of what AI is and what it can do. When you look at what we do, our product portfolio, we don't really have any competitors. So that means that not very many people know that what we do is even remotely possible. Of course, you have some drones, either doing drone deliveries or stock taking. As I've argued, that's a bad idea on so many levels. So the adoption problem becomes actually realizing the value that's on the table. There's money on the table using products such as ours, methods such as ours. They're there for the taking. That's your first problem, the knowledge. The second problem is AI, and in particular computer vision, does not scale very well to this type of problems. When you dig a little bit deeper in our technology, that's the problem we have solved. Make computer vision scale across thousands of warehouses. And I'm not aware of anyone else having gotten even close to doing that. But that is a very, very significantly difficult problem to solve. And people have been trying for 20 odd years, and it seems like we're the first who've actually solved it. So there is a technology challenge in actually, because doing it in one warehouse is possible from a technology point of view, but then scaling to the next 10 or the next 100, if you don't know how to do it, you will fail. Okay, there's a reason that there aren't any big drone stock taking deployments. I think the biggest I've heard of, which I'm not sure of, is 10 to 15 warehouses. Because of that technology scaling challenge that is inherent in the technologies we're dealing with. Okay, so that's probably the two biggest problems. I'll probably pause at that before just
I
keep
think
on going.
also there's two more points I would like to highlight here. One is there's a people aspect in your organization here, where people need to be ready for change and to adopt these new technologies, because we can generate gazillion data points, and you can have all the transparency that you need, but you need to also adopt it in the actual human processes in the company in order for you to take the right decisions based on that data. So there's a lot of change management in implementing AI, and that's something that needs to be addressed from the get-go when starting these projects. Another thing is the fragmentation of data. So if you buy systems from 100 different providers, then you have 100 different integrations that you need to put into your operations. So that's something that you need to juggle, and that needs to be dynamic in terms of pipeline planning. So where do we get the most value fastest, and then change the pipeline if the pipeline or the prioritization of the potential has changed. So don't create these static pipelines. Make them dynamic, and prioritize what gives the most value in the short term.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's a really good point that the biggest hindrance to adopting new technologies is just getting the buy-in from people who haven't used those technologies before. Last question here, interesting one. Does Sentispec have any ambition to create its own WMS within the integrated technology that we offer?
Today, absolutely not. What happens in 5-10 years, don't know. But I'll give you this reasoning. Our expertise is AI and computer vision and optimizing key processes in supply chains. Our expertise is not building warehouse management systems, and there's a lot of good companies out there who have built very good warehouse management systems, you know, your High Jump, your Manhattan, your Inforce, and so on. So the more likely scenario is for us to partner with one or more of these warehouse management systems and transport management systems to augment what they offer.
Makes a lot of sense. And I assume the same is true. We did also get a question beforehand around plugging into an ERP system, sort of the way SAP does. And I assume that follows the same logic there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we will at some point develop standard connectors to the top 10 TMSs and BMSs just out of the box. We don't currently have that. We're working with a few, but that's definitely part of our roadmap going forward.
Yeah, definitely. Great. Well, that's all we've got today. Thanks again, Andreas and Magnus, for your thoughts and walking us through some of your predictions for 2024 and how to combat that economic downturn if we end up seeing it then. Thanks again to everyone for joining us and for your insightful questions. Really fun to walk through those just now. Definitely join us next time. We'll let you know what the topic and date of that is as soon as we've got it. But enjoy the rest of your days when you get there. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
guys. Have a nice day. Bye.